The story takes place in a rural town in Tibet. A small group of young people were traveling through the Qinghai province of China. They were heading to a monastic institution to teach English. For most of them, it was their first time in Tibet, so they stopped in various towns and cities along the way. They arrived in a small town in Qinghai, historically part of Tibet, with a Buddhist population, and decided to spend a few days there. They were quite ecstatic to be there and wanted to experience the local culture, so they bought some food from the local markets, spent the day sightseeing, and found a motel to spend the night in. This was in February. The town had the kind of desolate feeling that any rural place has in the winter, and more so because of the surrounding mountains. On their second day staying in this small town, they woke up feeling a little dizzy and tired. But regardless, they decided to go hiking on the hills right behind the town. As they hiked up the hills, they noticed some small altars and prayer flags along the way. Not knowing what they were, they just kept on hiking. Suddenly, one of the young women, let's call her Jane, began feeling very strange. Her mind started feeling a little hazy, and she felt like she simply didn't care about anything. A small and rapidly dwindling part of herself started to panic, knowing that something bad was happening. But it was like her inner voice was slowly getting quieter and quieter. She started shutting out all the voices around her and fixed all her attention on the pebbles on the dirt. When they reached the summit, she sank into the ground right next to the pile of rocks. She began tapping one against the other repeatedly. Suddenly, she saw an apparition of a young girl in front of her. The girl touched Jane's face and asked her to jump off the cliff and die. Jane was in a trance. Random thoughts, like a fly bumping into a closed window, filled her head. The thoughts were meaningless in an almost demonic way. The group started to get worried for Jane, so they helped her up and decided to call it a day. When they left the hill, she felt normal again, but they were all freaked out because Jane looked like a walking corpse on their way down the hill. The hill wasn't even that high that the low air pressure would make it harder to breathe. And later on, when one of the other girls mentioned that she had felt very strange and depressed while they were hiking, Jane told her that she had felt the same. The group leader, who spoke the local language, mentioned that the local had told them that the town had been plagued with an epidemic of young women under 25 committing suicide. Some killed themselves with their unborn child, and some were found strapped to death. Some committed suicide by poison or jumping off the cliff. At night, the other girl, who was feeling a bit dizzy during their hike, went for a walk in the evening and never came back. After a few hours, the group leader called the local police, and they all went to look for her, but they couldn't find any trace of her. The next morning, the police and local men took the dogs and went to the hill. They found her dead at the same spot where Jane had seen the young girl. She had a heart attack, according to the local doctor. The group managed to call her family and arrange for the body to be flown back to her home. The group members decided to go back to the top of the hill in the afternoon, with the local Buddhist priest to put up a prayer flag for their lost friend. Jane was terrified because she now realized what she had seen that day was no illusion. Whatever it was, she knew that it wanted her dead, but she followed the group and let them go first. She was walking several yards behind the rest of the group when she felt something pulling her down to the point where she had to sit down. And then she saw an apparition that looked like her friend who just passed away, and it told her, "You will be safe now, as I was chosen for the sacrifice." When the group came down the hill, they saw Jane laying down, sleeping, and they all rushed down to help and see what was happening to her. They thought she had a seizure or something, until she woke up after a few seconds and told them that she had saw her dead friend. The group left the town without looking back, full of sadness and sorrow for losing one of their friends. To this day, Jane still can't explain what happened to her on that hill, but she never forgot the haunting image of that young girl.
Yeah.